if you're just here for the Parsha reading, you can skip to this timestamp. But I'm having a bit of a hectic start today. As you can see in my background, I'm in a new environment. I actually just got an office at my local WeWork. So I was setting all that up, and it's actually very exciting because it's the start of the new month of Kislev and just starting with some fresh energy and fresh space. So I will kind of just calm myself now as I get into my Parsha reading. Wanted to share that with you, and I'll share more updates if you're just here for my channel about my new space in a separate video. And I apologize because I'm a little bit rushed today. I won't be sharing a little snippet from Orat HaTorah, but I think I'll continue to try to find nice little snippets to share with you guys in following weeks. So we are again reading from the Gutnick edition of the Chumash, which as a reminder, or for those of you just joining this time, the commentary and really just the translation itself is a little bit different. It really fills in some of the blanks. So it's almost like a commentary infused into the translation, which I really enjoy. So if you're following along, we are on Parashat Vayeitzei. Yaakov left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came across a place, Mount Moriah, and spent the night there because the sun had set suddenly. He took some of the stones of the place and placed them around his head for protection from wild animals, and he lay down to sleep in that place. He dreamt, and look, a ladder was wedged in the ground, and its top reached to heaven, and look, angels of God were going up and down it. Suddenly, God was standing over him, and he said, I am God, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Yitzhak. I'll give to you and to your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be as widespread as the dust of the earth. You'll be strong to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you and your descendants. Look, I'm with you, and I'll guard you wherever you go, from Esav and Lavan. I'll bring you back to this land, for I will not abandon you until I have carried out what I have spoken to Abraham, a promise that was intended for you and not Esav. Yaakov woke up from his sleep, and he said, God is truly in this place, and I didn't realize, otherwise I wouldn't have slept here. He felt frightened. He said, how awesome this place is. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven through which all prayers ascend. Yaakov arose early in the morning. He took the stone that he had placed at his head, set it up as a monument, and poured oil on top of it. He named the place Beit Ail, but Luz was originally the name of the city. Yaakov made a vow saying, if God will be with me, keeping his promise, and he will guard me on this route in which I'm going, like he said he would, and he'll give me bread to eat, as he promised not to abandon me, and garments to wear. And if I return in peace to my father's house, as he promised I would, and God will be my God to prevent any of my children from going off the path, then I will do the following for you. This stone, which I have placed as a monument, will eventually be built to be a house of God, and I'll definitely separate tithes for you from everything that you give me. Yaakov found it easy to lift his feet after hearing the good news and went off towards the land of the people of the east. He glanced, and look, a well was in the fields. And look, 3 flocks of sheep were lying beside it, because they would give water to the flocks from that well. There was a huge rock on the mouth of the well. When the flocks would gather there, they would roll the rock off the mouth of the well and give water to the sheep, and then they would return the rock onto the mouth of the well to its place. Yaakov said to them, where are you from, my brothers? They said, we're from Haran. He said to them, do you know Lavan, the grandson of Nahor? They said, we know him. He said to them, is he well? They said, he's fine. Here is his daughter Rachel. Yaakov saw that the flocks were lying down before the day's work had ended. So he said, it's still the middle of the day. It's not yet the time to take in the flocks. Why don't you water the sheep and then go and pasture? They said, we can't until all the flocks are gathered together, and they'll roll the rock off the mouth of the well. Then we'll give water to the sheep. When he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Then when Yaakov saw Lavan's daughter Rachel, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Lavan, his mother's brother, Yaakov stepped forward and rolled the rock off the mouth of the well, effortlessly, showing his great strength, and he watered the sheep of Lavan, his mother's brother. Yaakov kissed Rachel. He perceived prophetically that she would not be buried with him, so he wept loudly. Yaakov told Rachel that he was her father's relative, and that he was Rivka's son. She ran and told her father, since her mother was no longer alive. Then when Lavan heard the news about Yaakov, his sister's son, he ran towards him, thinking that he would be laden with money like Eliezer. When he saw no money, he embraced him to feel what was in his pockets, and he kissed him to see if pearls were hidden in his mouth. Lavan brought him into his house. He told Lavan that what had happened with Esav, how he had run for his life without any money. Lavan said to him, Since you have no money, I should really turn you away, but you are my bone and my flesh, so you can stay. Yaakov stayed with him a month and pastured Lavan's sheep. Lavan said to Yaakov, should you work for me for free just because you are my relative? Tell me what your wages should be. Lavan had 2 daughters. The older one was called Leah, and the younger one was called Rachel. Leah's eyes were tender, and Rachel had beautiful facial features and a beautiful complexion. Yaakov loved Rachel, so he said, I will work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Lavan said, it's better for me to give her to you than for me to give her to another man. Stay with me. So Yaakov worked for Rachel 7 years, but to him it felt like a few days because of his love for her. Yaakov said to Lavan, give me my wife, for my time is up, and let me come to her and establish the future generations. Lavan gathered all the local people, and he made a feast. Then in the evening, when it was dark, Lavan took his daughter Leah and brought her to Yaakov. She told Yaakov the secret code, which Rachel had divulged, and he came to her. Lavan gave Zilpah his maid to his daughter Leah as a maid. Then in the morning, Yaakov saw that, look, it was Leah. He said to Lavan, what's this that you've done to me? Didn't I work with you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me? Lavan said, in our neighborhood, we don't do such a thing, to give the younger one before the firstborn. Finish a week of feasting for this newlywed, and we'll give you her sister too for a wife straight away in return for the work that you will do for me for another 7 years after the second wedding. Yaakov did just that. He completed the week of feasting for this newlywed, and Lavan gave his daughter Rachel to him as a wife. Lavan gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a maid. Yaakov came to Rachel too. He also loved Rachel rather than Leah. He worked with Lavan for another 7 years. God saw that Leah was hated, so he opened her womb. Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuven, because she said, for God has seen, Ra'ah, my affliction, Be'eni, since now my husband will love me. She became pregnant again and gave birth to a son. She said, since God has heard, Shama, that I am hated, he gave me this one too, and she named him Shimon. She became pregnant again and gave birth to a son. She said, now this time my husband will be attached, Vilave, to me, for I have borne him 3 sons, 1/4 of the 12 tribes. Therefore, God named him Levi. She became pregnant again and gave birth to a son. She said, this time I will thank Odeh, God, because I have had more than my quarter share of the 12 tribes. Therefore, she named him Yehudah. Then she stopped having children. Rachel saw that she had not borne Yaakov children. Rachel was jealous of her sister's good deeds, due to which she had merited children. She said to Yaakov, give me children through your prayers, otherwise I am as good as dead. Yaakov became angry with Rachel. He said, am I in place of God who has withheld the fruit of the womb from you? She said, here's my maid Bilhah. Come to her. She will bear children whom I will raise, so that I too will be built up from her. So she gave him Bilhah, her maid, for a wife, and Yaakov came to her. Bilhah became pregnant, and she gave birth to a son for Yaakov. Rachel said, God has judged me, Dan Ani, and acquitted me. He has also listened to my voice and given me a son. Therefore she named him Dan. Rachel's maid Bilhah became pregnant again and gave birth to a second son for Yaakov. Rachel said, I have stubbornly offered my torturous prayers, Naphtali, to God, and my prayers were accepted as with my sister. I too have been successful, and she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Yaakov for a wife. Leah's maid Zilpah gave birth to a son for Yaakov. Leah said, good fortune, Gad, has come, and she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah gave birth to a second son for Yaakov. Leah said, I am praised, Ashri, because women now praise me, so she named him Asher. In the days of the wheat harvest, Reuven went and found jasmine plants in the fields, and he brought them to Leah, his mother. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's jasmine plants. Isn't it enough that you've taken away my husband? She said to her. Now you want to take my son's jasmine plants too? Rachel said, in that case, Yaakov can sleep with you tonight instead of me, as payment for your son's jasmine plants. When Yaakov came from the field in the evening, Leah came out towards him. She said, you can come to me tonight because I've paid a fee for you to Rachel with my son's jasmine plants. And he slept with her on that night. God listened to Leah's prayers to have more tribes born through her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a 5th son for Yaakov. Leah said, God has given me my reward, Sechari, because I have given my maid to my husband, and she named him Issachar. Leah became pregnant again, and she gave birth to a 6th son for Yaakov. Leah said, God has given me a good portion, Zeved, This time my husband will live with me more than with his other wives, for I have borne him 6 sons, as many as all the other wives put together will produce. And she named him Zebulun. Afterward, she gave birth to a daughter, and she named her Dinah. God remembered that Rachel had divulged Yaakov's code to Leah to save her from Esau. She feared Yaakov would divorce her for being childless, and Esau had already set his eyes on her. So God listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She said, God has concealed Asaph my disgrace. She named him Yosef, saying, May God add Yosef another son for me. Then, when Rachel had given birth to Yosef, who was destined to destroy Esau, Yaakov felt safe to return. Yaakov said to Lavan, Send me away. I'll go to my place and to my land. Let me have my wives and my children, for whom I served you, and I will go, for you are aware of my services, which I have carried out for you. Lavan said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have found out by divining that God has blessed me because of you. He said, Specify what is to be your wage for me, and I will give it. Yaakov said to him, You know how I've worked for you and how few your flocks were when they first came to be with me. For the few that you had before I came have increased extensively, and God blessed you because of my arrival. But now, when will I also do something for my own household? Lavan said, What can I give you? Yaakov said, Don't give me anything. If you'll do the following for me, I will come back, pasture your flocks, and guard them. Let me pass throughout all your flocks today, and remove from there every spotted and patched lamb and every brown lamb from among the sheep, and every patched and spotted one from among the goats, for your sons to guard separately, so you will not claim that I am breeding these types. My wages shall be any spotted or patched goats or brown sheep that are born from the remaining sheep that I guard. Thus, at a future time when I leave, my financial integrity will be self-evident before you, because any non-spotted or non-patched goats or non-brown sheep in my personal possession will obviously be stolen from you. Agreed, said Lavan. I only hope it'll be as you say, and you won't change your mind. On that day, Lavan removed the ringed and patched male goats and all the spotted and patched female goats, whichever had white patches on them, and all the brown ones from among the sheep, and he gave them into the hands of his sons. He set 3 days' journey between himself and Yaakov tended the dregs of Lavan's remaining flocks. Yaakov took himself fresh sticks of poplar, hazel, and chestnut wood, and he peeled white streaks on them by uncovering the white that was inside the sticks. He inserted the sticks that he had peeled into the ground by the pools into which the watering troughs would fill, where the flocks would come to drink, so that they faced the animals. This caused them to become stimulated and mate when they came to drink. The flocks became stimulated and mated on seeing the rods, and the flocks bore ringed, patched, and striped young. Yaakov segregated the newborn sheep. He made the other animals and Lavan's flocks in a group behind so that they faced the ringed ones and all the brown ones. Yaakov separated the flocks in the above manner for his own benefit. He did not place them with Lavan's animals. What happened was that whenever the early bearing flocks would become stimulated, ready to mate, Yaakov would place the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the animals in order to stimulate them into mating by means of the rods. But when the flocks were late in bearing, he would not place the sticks. Thus the ones that were born late went to Lavan, and the ones that were born early to Yaakov. The man, Yaakov, became exceedingly wealthy. He had extremely fertile flocks and maids, servants, camels, and donkeys. Then he heard the words of Lavan saying, Yaakov has taken everything that belonged to our father, and he has amassed this entire fortune from what belonged to our father. Yaakov saw Lavan's face and look. It was not friendly towards him like yesterday and the day before. God said to Yaakov, Return to the land of your forefathers, to your birthplace, and I will be with you. So Yaakov sent a message and called Rachel and Leah to the field, to his flocks. He said to them, I see that your father's face is not friendly toward me like yesterday and the day before, but my riches came because the God of my father was with me. You know that I served your father with all my might. Your father mocked me and changed my wages 100 times, but God did not permit him to harm me. If you would say spotted ones shall be your wages, then all the animals would give birth to spotted ones. If you would say ringed ones shall be your wages, then all the animals would give birth to ringed ones. God took away your father's livestock and gave it to me. Then at the time when the animals became stimulated, I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream that, look, angels were bringing ringed, spotted, and striped he-goats from the flocks of Lavan's sons to mate with the female animals. In the dream, an angel of God said to me, Yaakov. I said, Here I am. He said, Now lift your eyes and see that all the he-goats mounting the animals are ringed, spotted, and striped, for I've seen all that Lavan is doing to you. I'm the God of Beit El, where you anointed a monument and where you made a vow to me. Now get moving, leave this land, and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah replied, saying to him, It's not as if we still have a share of or an inheritance in our father's house, for that will go to our brothers. Aren't we considered strangers to them? To him, for he sold us to you in marriage without a dowry. And when you worked for him to marry us, he totally consumed our money. Rather, all the wealth that God separated from our father belongs to us and our children. So now do everything that God said to you. Yaakov got moving. He lifted up his sons and his wives onto the camels, and he led off all his livestock and all his possessions that he had acquired in Padan Aram, purchased through the sale of the livestock that he owned, to come to Yitzchak his father in the land of Canaan. Lavan had gone to shear his sheep, which were his sons, 3 days' journeys away. So Rachel stole her father's idols, attempting to wean him off idol worship. Yaakov duped Lavan the Aramean by not telling him that he was running away. He fled with all his belongings. He got moving, crossed the river, and headed towards Mount Gilad. On the 3rd day, Lavan was informed that Yaakov had fled. He took his relatives with him and pursued him. He covered 7 days' journey in 1 day, and he reached Yaakov at Mount Gilad. God came to Lavan the Aramean in a nighttime dream. He said to him, Beware not to speak with Yaakov, either good or bad, for even your good is bad. When Lavan caught up Yaakov, Yaakov had pitched his tent on the mountain, and Lavan pitched his tent with his relatives on Mount Gilad. Lavan said to Yaakov, What have you done? You duped me and led away my daughters like prisoners of war. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me? I would have sent you off with rejoicing, songs, drum, and harp. You didn't allow me to kiss my sons and daughters. You have now acted foolishly. I am sufficiently strong to harm you, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Beware not to speak with Yaakov, either good or bad. Now you have repeatedly wanted to go away because you longed again and again for your father's house, but we worked things out sensibly and you stayed. And why have you stolen my gods? Yaakov replied to the questions in order. He said to Lavan, I ran off without telling you because I was afraid, since I said to myself, Perhaps you'll kidnap your daughters from me. In answer to your second question, whoever you find has your idols shall not live. In front of our relatives, identify for yourself which of your possessions is with me, and take it for yourself. But Yaakov did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Lavan entered Yaakov's and Rachel's tent, then Leah's tent, and the tent of the 2 handmaids, but he did not find them. When he came out of Leah's tent, he re-entered Rachel's tent, since he was suspicious of her. Rachel had taken the idols and placed them into the camel saddle, sitting on them. Lavan rummaged the entire tent, but he did not find them. She said to her father, I hope my master will not be annoyed that I can't get up before you, because the way of women is upon me. Lavan searched, but he did not find the idols. Yaakov became angry and argued with Lavan. He said to Lavan, What is my crime? What is my sin that you have pursued me? You have rummaged about all my things. Whatever you have found from among any of the utensils of your house, place it here in front of my relatives and your relatives, and let them decide between the 2 of us who is right. It's already 20 years that I've been with you, and your ewes and she-goats have not miscarried. I have not eaten the newborn rams of your flocks. I have not brought home to you an animal torn by a lion or a wolf. In such a case, I would suffer its loss because you would demand payment from my hand. I also paid for that which was stolen by day and that which was stolen at night. Where I was by day, the heat consumed me. At night, there was frost, and my eyes are deprived of sleep. It's 20 years that I've spent in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your animals, and you changed my wages 100 times. If it wasn't for the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the one who Yitzchak feared that was with me, you would now have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the toil of my hands, and he reprimanded you last night. Lavan answered Yaakov and said, The daughters are my daughters, the sons are my sons, the flocks are my flocks. All that you see is mine. As for my daughters, what harm would I dream of doing to them today, or to the children that they have born? Now come, let's make a pact, you and I, and may God be a witness between me and you. Yaakov took a stone and set it up as a monument. Yaakov said to his sons, Gather stones. They took stones and made a pile, and they ate there by the pile. Lavan called it Yagar Sahadusa. The pile is a witness in Aramaic. Yaakov called it Gal Ed, the same in its Hebrew translation. Lavan said, This pile is a witness between me and you today. It was therefore named Gal Ed. It is also known as Mitzpah, watch, because he said, May God watch me and you when we are hidden from each other. If you neglect my daughters, or if you take wives in addition to my daughters, when no one is with us, look, God is a witness between me and you. Lavan said to Yaakov, "Here is a pile, and here is a monument which I have set up between me and you. This pile is a witness, and this monument is a witness, that I am not to pass this pile to go to you, and nor are you to pass this pile and this monument to come to me to do harm. May the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us." Yaakov swore by the one whom his father Yitzchak feared. Yaakov slaughtered animals for a feast on the mountain. He invited his friends who were with Lavan to eat a meal. They ate a meal and slept over the mountain. Lavan got up early in the morning. He kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And then Lavan went off and returned to his home. Yaakov went on his way, and angels of God from the land of Israel encountered him to escort him to the land. When he saw them, Yaakov said, "This is a camp of God," and he named the place Machanaim, double camp, due to the two sets of angels that had escorted him from the diaspora and that had escorted him to the land of Israel. So I think this particular parsha actually had more of those interesting commentary translations sort of inserted into the text. So you probably notice a lot of deviations from the traditional text if you're reading along in your own Chumash. So thank you for joining again. I'm really excited for all of you who are continuing this series with me. It's really great to have you. Anyway, I want to wish you guys a Chodesh Tov, a Shavua Tov, a really wonderful, miraculous Kislev. I'm really excited to have to be in the month of Kislev, especially after Mar Cheshvan. So I'll see you guys next week and have a beautiful, wonderful, happy week.